This is a joint launch between the Centre of Public Policy Studies, CPPS, of the Asian Strategy and Leadership Institute, and the National Young Lawyers Committee, NYLC, of the Bar Council. Representing on my right here, CPPS represented by Rishayo, Director, on the left, and on the far extreme left is Edmund Bourne, representing NYLC, National Young Lawyers Committee. Yeah? Without further ado, I'll pass the mic over to Rishayo to elaborate further on this launch. Thank you.
Very good morning to all present, participants from the media as well as public and embassies, friends and members of the NYLC and CPPS. Just would like to thank you for being here with us this morning, as we're going to talk about a study that we have done over the months of July and August last year. Now we know that this study took place before many incidents in Malaysia in the national history, but we feel that this is a very important baseline study for us to examine the issues that were already in existence prior to certain events that took place. So let me just run through with you a very short presentation, and then after that we'll open the floor to question and answers. So just to give you a bit of background, the reason why this study is so important, because if you look at Vision 2020, for example, it says that one of the core objectives is to have a united Malaysian nation with a sense of common and shared destiny. This is said by the Datuk Maximus Ongkili of JPNIN and himself. And national unity, the context in which we define some of the variables was that it's defined by the department as a situation in which all citizens from the various ethnic groups, religions and states live in peace as one, giving full commitment to national identity based on the Constitution and the Rukun Negara. And in our study, we looked at some aspects, for example, citizenship and identity. We asked questions based on some of the discourse that is happening in academic literature on the social contract in Malaysia. We explored elements of the NEP, the New Economic Policy, which has been very much debated upon recently. And before I go on, just like to let you know, the study was conducted jointly between the two of us, the CPPS and the JPNIN, the CPPS and the NYLC, but it was funded predominantly by the Jabatan Perpaduan Nasional dan Integrasi Nasional, Negara dan Integrasi Nasional, JPNIN. We have presented our findings to them. Most of the slides and the contents here have already been shown to the JPNIN, and they have been very encouraged by the recommendations. There are some issues which are posing as challenges to them, but basically they have been positive in wanting to work together with us in the future. Let me just bring you through the development of the project. So the Centre for Public Policy Studies started out with an in-depth qualitative research study done in the Klang Valley on young Malaysians. So we did this through focus groups and in-depth interviews, asking them about their issues of national unity. And based on the results from this study, we formed the dimensions for the stage 2 of the quantitative research study. What happened after that was we actually had a Young Malaysians Roundtable discussion held here in these premises, when we invited the NYLC to come together and have a platform to discuss the findings from stage 1 and invite young Malaysians themselves to come up and tell us what they thought about the results. Consequently, we formed a consensus document. This document was presented to Datuk Maximus Ongkili in Parliament, and he agreed to table this document with his Committee on National Unity. And finally, this is how we get to Minda Muda, which is a study on young Malaysians in Peninsular Malaysia. We had 3 core research objectives. So number 1 was to unearth young Malaysians' life values, hopes and aspirations for the present and future. Secondly, to understand attitudes towards and aspirations for national unity in the country. We looked at different variables that make up national unity, which are racial harmony, religious harmony, And finally, to understand the attitudes towards the education system in Malaysia, how this contributes positively or negatively to national unity. Very quickly, research methodology, we had people aged between 18 to 35 years old. We had quota controlled sampling. This is just some technical information for you if you're interested. We had controls for the variables of strata, that means urban and rural. States, we covered all the states in Peninsular Malaysia. Age, race, gender. We had spread out locations. These were random intercepts, so meaning every 1 in 5 persons that the interviewer would encounter. Length of interview was about 20 to 25 minutes. We had same race interviewers to avoid the interviewer bias, and as well as the usual sort of research rigmarole that happens after the interviewing. There's validation and making sure that the questionnaires were actually accurate. We had 1,000 sample size all across Peninsular Malaysia. Actually, we had about 1,015, but that's, the quota control was 700 in urban and 300 in rural. The breakdown was based on population representation in proportions based on the census in 2000, and we looked at areas. Yeah, this just gives you the breakdown of the urban and rural areas which we covered. I'm sure you can read that on the slides yourself. This is the demographic profile. Again, this follows the proportion in the country. Okay, I think you can look through this. Let me just go directly to the summary. Well, you have your slides with you, and across the study, there were very certain apparent trends. So first, there were very significant differences in the responses between urban and rural areas. Rural respondents were very much more optimistic about unity, giving very high scores and ratings to perceptions of harmony and peace in the country. Urban respondents showed a great level of dissatisfaction, and this cuts across all the questions and variables in the study. Second, significant differences were clear between responses of the different ethnic groups. The pattern being, across the study, the pattern being Malays giving highest scores, followed by Indians, and then finally the Chinese. Regional differences were not as stark. So what we did was we had North, Central, East, and South. And I think this is an interesting thing to look at, in light of the recent elections. The Central and Southern regions seem to be less optimistic about unity in the country, as did those in the East and West. This is all in Peninsula, yeah? We also found that the younger age group prefers to mix more within their own ethnic and religious groups relative to their older age group peers, indicating increasing racial and religious polarization. So this is something to look out for. We also asked respondents to give us suggestions as to how national unity can be improved in the country, and there were also differences in the different ethnic groups giving suggestions. So I'm going to go through that with you later, but specifically government policies that were perceived to be unfair within education, economic and religious issues, and these things need to be addressed urgently. Research findings reveal underlying currents of inter-ethnic tension, and in order to deal with these root causes, we have already recommended this to the government before this, and we have told them that they should be encouraged to boldly examine public policies that adversely affect socio-economic and social-political fabric, especially those related to provision of equal opportunity and equal access to all. Finally, we also did an econometric national unity model. I'll talk a bit about this